So let's end the pod then with this story that Diego Costa could be returning to the Premier League with Wolves. I'm joined by our Spanish football writer, Dermot Corrigan, and our Wolves writer, Steve Madeley. You're already smiling, Dermot, at slightly how bizarre this appears.
Yeah, I was very surprised when I heard about it over the weekend, and David Ornstein, whose information is always pretty good, was reporting on it. Costa's been, since he left Atletico, he's been linked with various Spanish clubs, on and off, even Rayo Vallecano during the summer, but nothing ever came of it. He hasn't got as far as doing a medical. How he would get on in that medical, I guess, is a big question. But that it was Wolves with their connections to Jorge Mendes as well, I guess, wasn't a huge surprise. But it was a very interesting story to read over the weekend.
And Steve, that medical could be on, or will be on Tuesday. We're recording this Monday morning.
Yeah, I think he's due to arrive on Tuesday at Compton Park, Wolves training ground, and you imagine that the medical will be one of the first things that Wolves want to get out of the way, given the length of time he's gone without playing the game. But yeah, everything's just moved really quickly from signing Sasa Kalajdzic last Wednesday, I believe, to suddenly Diego Costa due to arrive 6 days later. It's just a bizarre turn of events, really.
And a very unlucky turn of events when you take us through the timeline to get to this point.
Absolutely. I mean, we're smiling at the bizarre turn of events with Diego Costa, but it's obviously a horrible moment for Sasa Kalajdzic, who Wolves have kind of spent the summer chasing a striker. They've only really had Raul Jimenez for the whole of pre-season. They sent Fabio Silva out to Anderlecht on loan. They thought they'd solved that problem last Wednesday when they finally did the deal for Kalajdzic, and kind of 40 minutes into his debut, he went down holding his knee, finished the first half, but then didn't re-emerge for the second half. And then less than 24 hours later, we find that he's done some kind of damage to his ACL, which we don't quite know the full extent of yet, but clearly any kind of ACL injury, you're talking months rather than weeks.
I suppose there are a lack of options out there for them, given the window has shut and so on and so forth. I mean, and there are very few options within their squad as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Raul Jimenez is the only kind of fit, recognised number 9, and even he didn't figure in the game against Southampton on Saturday because he pulled out in the warm up with some pain in a groin injury that he's been nursing for a while. So they really are, to use the old cliche, down to the bare bones.
And Dermot, of course, before that stint in Brazil, he had that second spell at Atletico Madrid. What was his second spell like?
It started off great. He came back. Well, he had to wait about 6 months because Atletico had a transfer ban. But once he got back into the team, he was the old Diego Costa that had struck fear into La Liga defenses when Atletico won La Liga in 2014. He was back. He linked up really well with Griezmann. He had a good connection with the Atletico fans. The Atletico went on to win the Europa League that year. Costa scored a winner against Arsenal in the semi-final and combined really well with Griezmann, who scored 2 in the final as they beat Marseille. Then that summer, Atletico beat Real Madrid in the UEFA Super Cup, which was a much bigger deal for Atletico than it was for Real Madrid. But Costa, he monstered Sergio Ramos in that game, scored a screamer after just 50 seconds. Atletico won 4-2 and everything was flying. That was the high point, though. From there, things went wrong. Just persistent injuries and some disciplinary issues as well, which are 2 things that come up a good bit with Costa, I guess. And the injuries especially, went wrong. He had a back problem. He had COVID. He had a strange kind of thrombosis blood problem, which I don't think was ever completely explained. And he just wasn't able to play at the level that Atletico needed. And he was still on huge wages. So Atletico were trying to, he had maybe 12 really good months with them. And then after that, Atletico were trying to get him out. There was talk of him moving to China very often. He even said himself that he was up for it, I think. And in the end, his contract was just rescinded. He got a payoff to leave and he had 18 months left because he just, wasn't happy. You could see it in him. He did a couple of very interesting interviews where I've always found him kind of an engaging character. I've never actually interviewed him, but whenever he speaks in the Spanish media, he's very honest and comes across as, quite down to earth and even, I'm going to say vulnerable, which might sound weird when you think about what he's like when he plays on the pitch, but he's very open and give interviews. And it was clear he was fed up with how things has gone. His body was letting him down. He wasn't enjoying life. and he came to an agreement with Atletico to end it there.
If this all goes to plan, Steve, and he goes through his medical and passes it, given everything that Dermot said, and given that he's been a free agent since the turn of the year, roughly, it's going to take a while to get him up to speed, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've written the piece today on the Athletic, and that's kind of one of the points I've made, that the fairly unique structure of this season means that effectively there's only 10 more rounds of games before the January transfer window opens effectively at the start of November. So I guess Wolves, when they do the medical, will have to look at the results and just weigh up how soon they think he can become any kind of have any kind of impact on their season. Because if he's going to take 6-7 games to get up to speed, then effectively you're bringing in a player for 3 games, aren't you? When you could just wait for the January window to open and bring in maybe someone else. We know that there were several alternatives to Kalajdzic who Wolves were looking at over the summer. But yeah, I mean, the prospect of Diego Costa playing for Wolves, I think, has got the fans excited. I think they would, even putting aside all of the issues about fitness and how close would he ever become to the Chelsea Diego Costa. I think Wolves fans have just become already seduced by the idea of having the Chelsea Diego Costa playing for their team.
The Wolves fans have been very positive about this, have they?
I think so. Yeah, it was quite amusing actually. As soon as they read the news about Kalajdzic's injury, you can imagine them all googling free agent centre forwards, and all over Twitter that there were Diego Costa gifs appearing before, and then within an hour, our colleague David Ornstein had broken the story that actually it wasn't just a Twitter thing. It was actually he was actually on his way to Wolves. It was just and then the excitement just gathered pace. I mean, how much logic there is to that, I'm not sure. It will obviously depend on what version of Diego Costa turns up at Compton tomorrow.
If it is the Diego Costa that still has a bit of, to use the very modern phrase, shithousery on the field.
That's been used a lot on Twitter, yeah.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can't avoid that word at the moment. Obviously, that's why fans are quite excited about it. I mean, there are other reasons as well, but that's part of the attraction of him. Do Wolves need that a bit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, whether it's the kind of shithousery that you mentioned, the Diego Costa fairly unique brand of shithousery that he brings, I'm not sure. But there is a perception, I think, that Wolves are quite a nice team, that they maybe need a bit more devil in them. And if you can have a bit of devil in your number 9, banging centre halves around, then clearly, what fan doesn't want that, really?
I always find it's important to learn from podcasts. So, what's the Spanish phrase for shithousery before we finish?
He has, well, you could say gara, maybe. It's like a South American phrase for claw, or word for claw, which is used around a lot of Uruguayan players, which I get Costa. I think he's from a different part of Brazil, but he definitely had that type of nastiness about him. Like, when he came back, Simeone loved him for that. And Simeone would, when he was asked about him in press conferences, would kind of smile and take a while to talk about how much he loved him and how he struck fear into defenders, and also how that type of energy that he had and aggression and physicality was contagious to his own players as well. That other players in the Atletico team would thrive on that, or would start to do things that maybe they wouldn't do otherwise, whereas defenses would just be terrified of him. That was more the case in his first spell at Atletico than his second spell. Like, even Del Bosque wanted to get him back, went out in Olympia to bring him back for the 2014 World Cup, which didn't work out so well because Costa was injured at the time. But he brought that, Spain were looking for that little bit of edge into their team as well. And Costa was always popular, even with the Barcelona players or the Real Madrid players, who he would have like roughed up on the pitch or got into battles with Ramos and Piqué and everybody. They liked him as a guy as well. He's not he might be into shithousing on the pitch, but he's a good guy around the dressing room, I think, as well. So I don't know how that would fit at Wolves. A lot of time has passed maybe since then, but you'd wish him well, I think, because the way that things ended at Atletico wasn't great for him. So hopefully things will work out.